bent down to pick it up or something, and she went down on one knee. And when she went down on one knee, I pulled the trigger and shot her.
Roommates can be wonderful things. At the very least, it can be a tool for an individual in a high cost of living area to split rent with another person, so the burden of the fixed cost doesn't solely depend on them. In other cases, a good roommate could even be an acquaintance or a friend. There is, of course, an inherent danger that comes with acquiring a roommate that you don't know. In fact, Netflix made a whole show about it.
Brilliant psycho.
Because sometimes you never really know what your roommate is capable of. Maybe the worst thing that they do is come up with their half of the rent a little late. But what if they're capable of much worse? What if your roommate was capable of murder? It was around 2014, and a man by the name of Robert Mondrian Powell was homeless and living in Namby, New Mexico, which is about 20 miles north of Santa Fe. It was around this time he met a woman by the name of Elvira Segura, a senior citizen and retired librarian who eventually ended up befriending Robert. In fact, Robert and Elvira became such close friends that eventually Elvira would agree to allow Robert to stay with her as a roommate, and in return, he would work as a handyman of sorts, doing odds and ends around the house, fixing things, tidying up, and this arrangement seemed to be going well for quite some time. Until, inexplicably, Elvira Segura seemed to just vanish off the face of the earth. After not hearing from her for quite some time, her friends and loved ones soon got concerned, and rightly so, because soon after this, Elvira's silver Kia would be found parked and abandoned in a pecan orchard in Las Cruces. This triggered her loved ones to contact the New Mexico State Police to look into her disappearance, and in September of 2016, an investigation was started. Shortly after this, officers visited Elvira's home. Upon entering, they found her deceased on the bathroom floor. Officers noted that the decomposition was so advanced that it was difficult for investigators to tell exactly what had happened to lead up to her death, and it wasn't long before Robert Powell's name came up as a person of interest. He was supposedly living with her at the time, so logic would dictate that he would be the next person for police to speak to. Only, he seemed to have disappeared too. So, in an attempt to locate him, investigators tracked the usage of his EBT card and were able to approach him outside of a Las Cruces grocery store. He agreed to be interviewed by police.
We were right around there. Didn't know her until better socially until about 5 years later, maybe.
Okay. Why did you live with her? Did you? I don't know if you had a relationship.
No, we didn't have. We were just friends.
Okay.
But the reason I lived with her was because I was homeless at the time.
Okay.
And she thought it would be best if I stayed with her, which I did. And I helped out. I did a lot of stuff around the house.
Okay. And when did you live with her until?
About 4 weeks ago. 3 weeks, 4 weeks ago.
4 weeks ago? So
I think. Yeah, so sounds right. What is today?
Today is October
14th. It might have been a little bit more.
This beginning section sets up the reason Robert was living with Elvira in the first place. He mentions to the officer how he was homeless, how he and Elvira were friends, and how he would earn his keep by taking care of quite a bit of the work around the house. He also describes some of the situations Elvira was in that put her at ends with some of her neighbors. Finally, He starts trying to make her seem incapable of self-control by talking about how she abused her prescription medication. Let's skip ahead a bit.
What would you consider you to Elvira?
I was a good friend of hers.
Yes. Okay.
Would it be fair to say that she was mean?
She was very mean. She was abusive.
Was she abusive towards you? What is that?
It's a scar from the last time that she hit me with a folding table.
Okay. When was that?
Just before I left.
And what started that situation?
I have no idea. You'd be reading or watching TV or sleeping. She seemed to come at me when you'd be sleeping.
Did you have to defend yourself against her at that point?
Well, she would just start going off. I do remember now why I got this was because her headphones on her computer stopped working and she listened to audiobooks constantly. And she would sew and listen to audiobooks. And I said, well, let me check your headset. So I checked her headset. There was nothing wrong with the headset. It worked on other devices. And I fiddled with it, and I thought, well, the connection on the computer is shot, maybe. But then it would go in and out, and I was like, so I said, let me look up something. So I had a tablet, a little, tablet computer. So I went and looked up troubleshooting on her model and why it would or would not possibly work. And in the meantime, she said, well, I guess I'm going to have to buy a new computer. And I said, well, that's just silly to buy a new computer when this is a very minor problem that could probably, the Geek Squad could fix for you. I said, I don't know why you'd want to spend that much money on a brand new computer unless you really wanted one. I said, that's just plain silly. Let me look this up. And I did. I looked it up, and evidently you can change what's called a driver on the computer. I'm not a computer nerd, but I understood what they were talking about. So I changed the driver to headset.
So at this point, you're probably thinking to yourself, what the is he talking about right now? And you'd be completely within your rights to feel that way. It appears that Robert just talks and talks and talks endlessly about random topics. And if you listen to the full, unedited interview up to this point, that really gets driven home. In reality, it's not uncommon for someone who is nervous, anxious, guilty, or trying to conceal something to overtalk or drown their story in minute details that they feel add to the authenticity. Or perhaps just throw more information at the listener in an attempt to convince them that what they're saying has some merit. And so Robert rambles on with his inconsequential story for the next 10 minutes, and then proceeds to rant about how difficult Elvira was to live with. We'll just listen to a portion of that for context.
Another thing was she wanted you to be wrong and to apologize. And a lot of times I just wouldn't. I said, I don't see what I did wrong, Elvira. This doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me. I said, but whatever it is, I'm really sorry. Well, you're not really sorry, God, just go on. And so I thought, well, she'll eventually give me my phone. The next day she was real tight-lipped, but she wasn't yelling or anything. And then I think it was the next day after that, then she started in again. She started going on and on about how Elvira is stupid and stupid me and how could I be so stupid. I said, I don't know what you're talking about. I never referred to you as stupid, Elvira. And I said, and when you listen into a conversation and you get it wrong, I said, it just makes it even worse. I said, because I wasn't even talking about you. And so it just didn't stop. So she started the physical stuff again, getting in your face and things. And that's the time when I yelled at her. And I did tell her, I said, Elvira, I yelled, screamed at her. I said, you have no right to touch me. Don't do that. Stop it. And so she stopped for a little while, and so I went to the bedroom, and I closed the door, And when you close the door, it means you know I'm not interested in dealing with it. So I just, but she kept opening the door and turning off the overhead fan, which is very childish. And then,
Okay, I won't subject you to any more of Robert's complaining, but as we skip to the next section of the interview, where things get a little more interesting, keep in mind the precedent that Robert attempted to set here with all of his complaining and anecdotes.
my reaction when something like that happens that doesn't make sense is to just like go away from it. I just don't want to get into it. I don't like to argue. I don't like to fight. I had enough of that when I was a kid, so I've been trying to avoid it all of my adult life. So,
What it means is it sounds like nobody would blame you for defending yourself.
yeah, but you're not supposed to do that.
No, but sometimes it happens, right?
Well, it's a case of he said, she said, and stuff like that, I know.
The officer states, well, no one would blame you for defending yourself. Here, the interrogating officer is using that Uno reverse card on our pal Robert. By giving him the justification that no one would blame him if he tried to defend himself, he's giving Robert a psychological opening to begin to confess to the crime.
And, well, eventually she got mad and she called the, I don't know who it was, state police or the sheriff, I don't remember who it was, but a very nice, smart law officer showed up and separated us because she kept coming in and screaming. And I said, she's just been this way, and I said, I just didn't want to have to deal with it. So I shut myself up in here.
And so before you came here, you were talking about this scar. Is that right before you left?
In case you needed any more evidence that Robert is simply drowning in his own words and stories, Robert Powell first referenced the scar on his arm around minute 16 of this interview, when he launched into the bevy of stories about how difficult it was to live with Elvira. Now, at almost 40 minutes in, the detective brings it back around to the scar on his arm, which wasn't addressed at all as of yet.
I'm sorry?
The scar that you got on your hand,
Yeah.
that fight that you guys had,
Yeah.
was that right before you left to us from
Yes.
Santa Fe for Nave?
Yes.
Can we talk a little more about that?
Sure.
So you said she swung and hit you with the table,
Mhm.
correct? With the little, where you eat?
Yeah.
And what happened after that?
We got in, we had words right after she hit me with that, on that particular, the last time. And, I said something to her. I said, that's like assault and battery, Elvira. I don't want you to go to jail. And I said, because I don't know who's going to run your house. And so she had sat down on the couch, the little, bed thing across from me. She had sat down there, and then she just started calling me every name in the book and stuff like that. And so then I started to get up, and I went to pick up a plate that needed to go to the kitchen. And I went to pick up the plate, and then she started in again and started hitting me with her fists. And then she blocked the way. She ran in front of me to the door, to the bedroom door, blocked the way, and then started taking swings at me, which she's not very good at doing. And so I got enraged, and I pushed her back towards the center of the room to get her out of the way. I don't know if I grabbed her like this and moved her, and I said, Elvira, get out of the way. And I moved her, and at one point she went down on the floor, and we got into it, and I hit her. I hit her head, or she hit her arm when she fell, and it did not sound good. It sounded like it hurt her. And also, I went to tell her, get up, Elvira, just get up. you need to leave the room. And she was having trouble getting up in the center, but she was just still cursing me. And I lost it. And I pushed her back down onto the floor, and I hit her head several times, I know, on the floor, which was a brick floor.
Do you try to stop her from talking at any time, to put your hand over her mouth, or try to
No, I didn't
put
do
your hands on her neck?
No, I didn't do that. No, but I did hit her.
Okay. And what happened after that?
And then I was just so angry, just absolutely angry. And I said, you need to go. I said, you're bleeding over here. You need to go to your bathroom, and you need to clean up. And she seemed a little bit stunned, but she was still just really absolutely livid, and screaming and yelling at me and everything else. And so I told her, I said, now I've done it. I said, I'm going to go to jail because you made me lose my temper. And I said something like, I really don't want to go to jail over something like this. Elvira, this is ridiculous. And I was mad, but measured. I wasn't screaming or yelling or anything like that. But she wouldn't give up on it. She wouldn't stop.
How did you get her to stop?
She followed me into the bedroom, and I went and I reached in under the cushion in the, what do you call it, the folding bed, the day bed, the futon bed. And I pulled out a gun, and when she went back to her bathroom, I pointed it at her, and I told her, you need to really relax and calm down. I said, this is enough, this is over. And I kind of lost I don't really remember. I remember saying, this is enough, it's over. I don't remember. And I was talking at her, but I can't remember everything I said, to be honest with you. And so at one point she reached down and got it. She had thrown a bunch of stuff like that was on a folding tray, not a folding tray, just a wire shelf. She kicked it, threw it all over the place, and went into the bedroom and everything. And she grabbed what do you call it, some sort of a mat. I do remember that, a shower mat or something. And she bent down to pick it up or something, and she went down on one knee. And when she went down on one knee, I pulled the trigger and shot her.
And there it is, the moment every interrogator dreams about. Their suspect confesses to the crime on camera in the interrogation room, and, all said and done, the interrogator didn't really have to do much. No long-winded lines of questioning, no trying to dredge up guilt over what the suspect did, no appealing to the suspect's humanity, no good cop, bad cop. Robert just kind of confessed on his own. And as you'll see in the coming minutes, he just keeps giving them valuable information.
Where'd you shoot her?
In the bathroom.
Do you know where it hit her?
No. I did see blood coming out from around her neck or back of her neck or something. And I pulled the door closed, and I never opened it again.
How long were you there after that happened?
One day and a half. 1 day and a half.
What did you do with the gun?
I put it on the bed in our bedroom. I didn't want to look at it. I was absolutely shocked.
And you left it there?
No. When I came to Santa Fe, I brought it with me. My intention was eventually to use it on myself.
Where is it now?
It's in some trees near the Masonic Cemetery. I think it's still there. I haven't looked at it in days.
Was it hidden pretty well?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Would you mind taking us out there to show us?
I'll take you.
Okay. So then you, once this happens, you're there for about a day and a half or so. Then what are you thinking at this point?
I was thinking that I was going to try and come to Santa Fe and, no, not Santa Fe, Las Cruces, and I decided, well, I'll just take the gun, but I didn't want to do it there. So, with what little bit of money I did have, I had enough for like a tank of gas and a half, something like that. I came to Las Cruces, just drove straight down, and I was gonna. Twice I came really close to pulling the trigger, but I didn't.
What'd you do with her car?
It's in a pecan grove. Off of Old Highway 28.
Why'd you leave it there?
It ran out of gas and the battery was not good, so I couldn't do anything with it.
Where did you go after that?
Into town, and I've been hanging out ever since.
Okay. Where have you been staying?
Here and there, just wherever I could. Been staying outside.
Outside mostly?
Always.
Always. There's no shelters or anything, any assistance?
I don't know. I didn't check.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
Recently I've come down with what I think is COPD, so I can't really walk that far without getting really tired and breathless and stuff, so it's amazing I was able to make it into town.
Okay. Can you give us just a minute? We'll be right back with you.
Of course.
Thank you.
So, let's recap, shall we? Robert spends the whole first half of the interview complaining about Elvira, even talks about how it would sometimes lead to verbal and physical confrontation. He then confesses to getting into a physical altercation with Elvira, where he struck her in the head. And finally, he confesses to shooting her. In addition to that, he tells them what he did with the firearm that was used to commit the shooting, as well as where to find Elvira's car. And as you can see from the footage, this interrogation was no way coerced. So, after confessing to this terrible crime on camera, Robert is convicted of murder and spent the rest of his days behind bars. Yeah, no, that's not quite what happened.
Got him! Got him!
In 2018, Judge T. Ellington dismissed Robert's case on the grounds that the state violated his right to a speedy trial. Let's go through some of the unfortunate circumstances that led to a murderer walking free. The first goes all the way back to the United States Constitution. The Sixth Amendment states, "In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed." Now, the definition of a speedy trial varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. In the case of Robert, who committed the murder in New Mexico, there is what they call the 182-day rule, which indicates that the state has 182 days, or just about 6 months, from the date of arraignment to commence trial. Keeping all that in mind, let's see where the state's case fell apart. The state failed to issue the firearms report to the defense in a timely manner, causing 8 months of delays. When the report was finally issued, there was various errors. The state failed to respond to defense motions in a timely manner, causing further delays. The state failed to produce an expert witness, causing even more delays. Too many prosecutors were assigned to the case, and it changed hands too many times, leading to more delays. So, due to all of these reasons, almost all of them being the fault of the prosecution, Robert's case was dismissed by the judge for violating his constitutional right to a speedy trial. So now you might be thinking, well, great, now there's just a murderer walking around free. Well, not quite. Very shortly after being released from prison, Robert Mondrian Powell died. But it turns out no one mentioned this to the district court because for 3 weeks after his death, they were still arguing as to whether or not he should be retried for murder. Gotta love bureaucracy. So, let's recap again. Robert is homeless, and he's taken in by Elvira, who he befriends. She lets him be her roommate/tenant in exchange for him doing work around the house. Their relationship deteriorates, which results in verbal and physical abuse and altercations. The tensions keep rising until eventually Robert, during a heated confrontation, shoots Elvira, killing her. He proceeds to live in the house for another few days before moving her car and leaving the house. He's arrested, questioned by the police, and admits to everything on camera. After he's arraigned, the prosecution fumbles what should have been an open and shut case so badly that the judge dismisses the case for violating Robert's constitutional rights. Robert leaves jail and drops dead. The courts continue to argue about the case until someone finds out the defendant is dead weeks later. So, what's the takeaway here? Be really careful who you choose to be your roommate.